Gonna start off with the very awesome game Bloody Wolf. No way would there ever be a Nintendo game called Bloody Wolf. It's very POW-like, but it just has that extra bit of grittiness that you couldn't get from like other consoles. I mean, you actually see blood and stuff like that. That didn't exist on Nintendo, really. You can tell just by looking, just kind of fight your way through the enemy fortress, kill the bad guys. You can pick up new weapons along the way, and even pick up a motorcycle, which I thought was super cool. Kill the bad guys, save the hostages, defeat the bosses, move on. That's kind of like Bloody Wolf for you. Definitely worth checking out. Now, the legendary axe should have been the pack-in as far as I'm concerned. However, this game, it's so awesome. I mean, it's actually really, really good, I think. Especially for its time. It plays a little bit like Rastan in a way. You just kind of have to move your way through. You got your legendary axe. I loved some of the elements like this giant spider, like the more you attack it, like legs fall off. I thought that was super cool. I also liked, especially for its time, where you couldn't just keep hitting the axe button over and over and over again. You actually had to like build it back up to strength. A lot like how Secret of Mana did later. Legendary Axe is just one of those classic launch titles, staple game for the TurboGrafx-16. Definitely worth checking out. And if you loved the Legendary Axe, you'll be happy to know that they made a Legendary Axe 2. Unfortunately, it looks like this. It's like you're shiny or something, and doesn't even play the same. Like, it's a completely different game, only, you know, they just put the name The Legendary Axe on it, I guess. I mean, you don't even start with an axe. I mean, there's that. Start with a sword, and then other weapons later on are, again, not axes. I mean, the game's not terrible, is what it comes down to, but it should have been called literally anything else. It did not need to be The Legendary Axe 2. Maybe they're just trying to capitalize on it. I'm a huge fan of video pinball, and Devil's Crush is one of the best ones out there for any console. And again, you wouldn't see this on Nintendo, not with the word devil right in the title. Has 3 stages of pinball, as you can move your pinball up the stages. Each one has its own thing going on, and there's even kind of, not really a boss battle, but there's like, you fight enemies in a way around what's not totally supposed to be a pentagram or anything, but you know, you get the idea with Devil's Crush. And what intrigued me was this creepy face in the middle of it. And the more you hit things around it, the more the face becomes creepier and creepier. If you're into video pinball like I am, Devil's Crush is definitely right up your alley. And along with Devil's Crush, we also had Alien Crush. Now, Alien Crush, admittedly, I think plays better than Devil's Crush. I might like Devil's Crush a little bit more, just because of the themes, I suppose. But this one's still super, super, super cool, and definitely worth checking out as well. I mean, it plays almost identical, and it still has other things that you can hit along the way. You know, it makes it a little bit more interesting, I suppose. But yeah, perfect combo. Devil's Crush, Alien's Crush. Man, if this was happening today, we would have had like a zombie crush, or maybe a unicorn crush, I don't know. Ooh, a game by Atlas, sweet. The game is called Summer Assault. It is a very, very unique puzzle shooter. I'm not exactly sure what to call it. Now, the game uses like Zodiac or something or other. Like, even when you type in your name, it asks for your birthday. But this is what the game plays like. You play as like this weird slinky type character, I guess. But it has gun turrets on it. So depending on where you're positioned, that's where you fire. And you just kind of grab onto the floors or the walls or the ceiling and move your way through the level as this weird thing. I mean, it even has boss battles and everything. I mean, it's Summer Assault, and it's from Atlas, and I mean, it's really, really, really unique and very good. It's one of those games that nobody's talking about. Shockman is the game that's going to be the most like Mega Man on this system. Now, you don't really get your weapon upgrades like you do in Mega Man, but the tight controls, the run and gun style, it's all Mega Man, and you'll find that in Shockman, conveniently enough. I mean, horizontal platformer, it can move up in stages sometimes. It's neat. Sometimes some of these jumps are like ridiculous. Like, how can you just can't avoid the fire sometimes, it seems like. It's a fun one though. I like Shockman quite a bit. Now, Tiger Road was a game I played a lot of in the late 80s in the arcade, and they never made it for NES, they never made it for the Sega Genesis, but we had it for the TurboGrafx-16, so super happy that came out, and it's, to me, back then, I felt it was like arcade perfect. Now, is it arcade perfect? Well, I'd have to play them side by side today, but man, back then, I loved it, man. I couldn't get enough of it. My biggest gripe about this game is you can jump up through the platforms, but you can't jump back down through the platforms, so you actually have to drop down the platforms, which is very annoying if you ever get lost, but super fun game though. You can get your weapon upgrades and everything. Love this game. Didn't really see a whole lot of Capcom games on the TurboGrafx-16, and this is one of them though, so happy this made the list. Silent Debuggers is a game, like when I saw the picture on the back of the box of like what the game looks like, it's a game that I'm not really a huge fan of, I'll be honest, straight up front. I saw it and I was just like, it's not really for me. But the more I played it, the more I really enjoyed it. It's that first-person maze-type game. You're in this spaceship, this alien ship or whatever, and you have to fight the aliens. And when they come up at you, then you just gotta blast them out of the way or run and dodge and move somewhere else. You do have a little command center that has your map and has like, objectives in the game and all that, but Silent Debuggers is another one of those kind of staple TurboGrafx-16 games that if you have a TurboGrafx-16, I mean, you may as well have this too. Keith Courage in Alpha Zones is the pack-in game because I'm pretty sure they didn't think anybody would buy it. I don't know how true that is. But this was a game that came packed with the TurboGrafx-16. However, if you buy one now, you might not find one. But you can find them cheap whenever you do find Keith Courage games out in the wild. It's an interesting, unique kind of title. It starts out in a town. Every stage does. It starts out in the town. You can talk to people. You can get your weapon upgrades, use your money to buy stuff. It still has platforming elements and enemies, so you gotta watch out for those all the same. And the second half of the stage is you're this mech with this giant sword, and you work your way through the dungeon. Now, very monotonous almost, because you really only go the same way. As far as these dungeons go, you just keep dropping down, go to the other side of the screen, drop down, go to the left, drop down, go to the right, drop down. Eventually you will run into a boss, you have your boss battle, and then you move on to the next stage. It's a game based on an anime that we never got in the United States of America, and another one of those did you know is they made a sequel to it, but the sequel only came out for the Famicom and plays completely different. But it's another one of those. You got a TurboGrafx-16, man, you gotta have Keith Courage and Alpha Zones. Assuming you're completely new to the TurboGrafx-16, you gotta go with Bonk's Adventure. It is the staple game. It would have been the pack-in. It was like the mascot character, only it came out later on. You play as a prehistoric character with a giant head, and that head is your weapon. You can headbutt enemies, just bonk them, I suppose, or you can jump up in the air and come crashing down head first. The music's fun, the levels are creative, it's just a fun idea for a game and has that kind of prehistoric theme to it, so gotta love Bonk's Adventure for sure. I mean, it's one of those games, seriously, you'll probably beat it the very first time you play it if you play it straight through, but it's still worth a playthrough, and it's just super fun. I love Bonk's Adventure, still play it today. Love the giant, fun-looking bosses, too. That was always one of my favorite features about Bonk's Adventure. And good news, if you loved Bonk's Adventure, you'll have Bonk's Revenge. That's the sequel. Plays the same. Still have to attack the enemies. Still have to get your fruit and stuff. The meat, of course, turns you crazy and stronger. The difference between this game and the last game, though, is when you're at your peak meat mode or whatever, you can also breathe fire, which will come in handy. Now, there is a Bonk 3, but it came out for the TurboGrafx CD, and TurboGrafx CD will be another video for another time. But we did get Air Zonk, which is Bonk, at least the character or the story or the something, but as a shooter, which is unique enough. And I know it's weird, TurboGrafx-16 is notorious for how many shooters they have on their system. And this is the first one on this list, so we'll have more later on for sure. It plays like a typical shooter. You fly through, you can shoot the enemies down. You can charge up your shot and shoot it, and I like that because once you charge up your shot, if it hits someone, then it turns into like multiple bullets behind them. I thought that was a good idea, and it's fun to have too. You got your colorful aspect of the Bonk's Adventure series and a great shooter that the TurboGrafx-16 is known for, so you can't go wrong. Well, until you start looking up the price on eBay, then that's where you can go wrong. Oh my goodness. Now got a lot of love for Pac-Land. Unique arcade controls where the 1 and 2 buttons move you left and right. You just keep tapping them and that's when you move, and then the other button is your jump. However, on the TurboGrafx-16 you can change that if you'd like. So your left and right on the D-pad is to move left and right, which is how I've always played this game. It's certainly inspired by the cartoon. It's the same cartoon song that plays throughout the entire game for the most part. The ghosts are interesting enough. You can actually stand on them and stuff like that. You can't hit them. You can't run into them. That will kill you. But you can like jump on their head and move somewhere else. You have to keep moving because Sue, the woman ghost, the lady ghost, is always right behind you. So if you stall too long, she'll come get you. And of course, because it's Pac-Man, they do have the power pellets, which will make the ghosts be edible, so you can clear your path easier. Again, those cartoon graphics and the sound and everything, it's worth a playthrough. It's just fun. Crater Maze is a great time killer. I love games like this. I wish they would come back in fashion. It's a little Lode Runner-esque, where you make the holes and the enemies fall into them. But then once the enemies are in the hole, you can defeat them. I mean, they might come back, but in doing so, you might get some great power-ups along the way too. So do that as often as you can, of course. It has that classic TurboGrafx-16 color palette that I just absolutely love, and it's just a fun game. If you're just like, man, there's so many like gritty games or shooters. I mean, I just want something fun, especially for the kids. Crater Maze is right up your alley. I love it. If you're like, man, there's not enough gritty games on this system, well, what about Double Dungeons? Double Dungeons is available for you, and even a 2-player mode on this game. How awesome is that? This is your 3D dungeon crawler, and this one's one of the better ones, because it's simple enough that even if you see games like this, you're just like, oh man, I can't figure this game out. You can figure this game out. They've simplified it for you. You'll find monsters along the way, easy to defeat too, you just walk up to them, really. You'll find other stuff along the way too, but with all these dungeons, well, it's double dungeons. And that's what's going down in this game. It's another one of those staple games for the TurboGrafx-16 where it's like, of all the games that people are talking about, this one's usually high on a lot of people's lists. Alright, fine, we can talk about blazing lasers. Now, the TurboGrafx-16 is known for their shooters. There are so many great shooters. And blazing lasers, one of the more popular ones, one of the better ones in a lot of people's eyes. And I like it. I don't think it's the best shooter for the TurboGrafx-16, but it is really, really, really good. You can't deny its popularity. I do like how once you get enough power-ups and upgrades and all that, your lasers become super ridiculous. And I love that. I mean, so many games that we played, so many shooters in the past have just been like, your single bullet and like the 3-way and then like the 5-way spread, and you just get more and more spread to it. But these lasers are they're just ridiculous, like I said. Blazing Laser is probably the most popular turbo chip type game for the TurboGrafx-16. And again, like I said in the last one, for all the right reasons. Now, do I think Dead Moon is the greatest shooter for the TurboGrafx-16? Well, I don't know. I mean, it's up there, I think. It's one of these games that looks like this, and it plays like this. But there's something about this game. There's a charm to it. I can't place my finger on why or what. It just plays very, very well. It doesn't need to be any more than that. It's just a great shooter, and I love it for it. And I love this huge wave shot here, too. That's my favorite. Now, what about Aero Blasters? Is that the best shooter for the TurboGrafx-16? Well, I mean, it's another great one. This one's rough because it's one hit kill. You don't have a life bar. You just, once you get shot once, then you're out of commission. You'll come back. Of course you'll come back, but you'll just keep going from there. And you do have this little charge shot too. It won't kill like the bigger enemies, but it'll get rid of some of like the missiles coming towards you. It might get rid of some of the smaller enemies that are, being waved towards you. So that's kind of a nice feature. And I love it when it goes like from like regular daytime to apocalypse in this first stage. I've always liked that about this game. Yeah, Aero Blasters is great. Got a fun puzzle game in Chu Man Fu. Now the Fu Manchu is the long kind of tailed mustache. But Chu Man Fu, it just has a fun name to it. It's a puzzle type game. You have to put these orbs on their corresponding colored platforms. You can roll them around, you can push them, you can kick them into enemies, which will defeat them. But you can also I like the fact that you can take these orbs and you can like push them forward or pull them back or pull them around corners. A lot of games don't give you that luxury. But even with that luxury, it doesn't make this game like a breeze, a pushover. No pun intended. Once you put all the orbs on the squares, time to move on to the next level, and that's Chu Man Fu, and it's absolutely fun. Ballistics is probably most compared to a sports game in a way. It's a weird one, and it's kind of rough, but I keep coming back to it because I keep thinking I can do better next time. When, of course, in reality, no, I never do any better next time, but I still wanted to showcase it. You have to get that big old black ball in the opponent's side, kind of like an air hockey, but instead of air, you're shooting all of these like pachinko balls, and man, it just gets crazy. But I love all the moving features on screen all at once, and there's no slowdown. I don't think I've ever seen slowdown on this game once. You can do 2 players on this game too, so it might make a fun challenge. You might want to check out Ballistics sometime. In the last video we had Shockman, this time we have Bravo Man. It's from Namco too. I'm surprised we haven't seen anything more from Bravo Man in a long time. Like ever. It's outside of this game, I don't think. I liked it for its time because you can extend your arm and your legs, so if the enemy's farther away, you can still attack them from as far back as you are. I remember it being kind of a harder platformer game too, but Bravo Man is just another one of those games you might see it, and it's like, oh, I don't know, should I, shouldn't I? And you can make up your own decision for yourself. I mean, it's from Namco, so you can't really go wrong too bad. Another kind of interesting, fun puzzle title in Tricky Kick, which has you kicking animals. Now, let me explain. Kicking is how you move these things around. In doing so, it moves up to the wall or up against the corner, however far the next wall is from where these enemies are. And with the momentum, you can kick kind of through them, so the one on the back end goes further. And once two of them collide, then they disappear, and once you get them all to disappear, you move on to the next level. Tricky Kick's an interesting one. Parasol Stars, according to this, is the story of Bubble Bobble 3. And not only have Bubble Bobble, but we've had other versions of Bubble Bobble. We've had Rainbow Islands and stuff like that too. This one's Parasol Stars. It certainly looks like a Bubble Bobble game and plays a lot like one too, only instead of having bubbles, you have your parasol, your umbrella. And you attack the enemy with it, and then you can pick it up and throw it at the other enemies and turn them into fruit. Because that's what Bubble Bobble does. You can also use your parasol to float down as needed. Big colors, bright colors, super fun game. Love Parasol Stars. I wanted to show this really quick. This is Andre Panza's Kickboxing. If you've ever played Best of the Best, which was on several platforms, it was on the Super Nintendo, Genesis, I believe, it was on the NES. This is Best of the Best, but for the TurboGrafx-16. I don't know why they didn't call it Best of the Best. They wanted to put Andre Panza's name on it, which is fine. But if you dug Best of the Best, they got it on this. That's the best around. Now, if you have a TurboGrafx-16, man, you gotta have Dungeon Explorer. It plays like a good Gauntlet. And this is coming from me who loves Gauntlet, so I shouldn't say that. It takes everything that's awesome about Gauntlet and makes it better. How about that? So you have the exploration feature of Gauntlet without these giant swarms of ghosts. But with this game, you can also just move around and you can go down these dungeons, and it's Dungeon Explorer. It's awesome, and it features little town elements too, where like you can talk to townsfolk and whatnot. But it's still, the action of this game is very Gauntlet-like, and I'm a big fan of this game. You want to check out Dungeon Explorer for sure. You may have played Jackie Chan's Action Kung Fu on the NES, but the TurboGrafx-16 version, to me, is the essential version of it. This is the ultimate version of it. This is the version that the NES version wishes it was. This game is the one it's supposed to be. I mean, it plays the same. Just looks better, has better graphics, has better sound. Still has your special moves. Still has that cloud bonus stage. It's one of those, you take an awesome game that you already know exists, like Jackie Chan's Action Kung Fu for the NES, and just makes it better. And because it's the same game, just better. Magical Chase, one of the hardest games, could be the hardest game to get for the TurboGrafx-16. If you ever get a chance to get it, man, grab it. Another fun shooter, but it is with the cartoon element. Love the creative enemies. You can buy your upgrades and items later on from a jack-o'-lantern. Okay. This is a fun, I like this cube boss at the end of the first stage. Magical Chase is awesome. If you want that Zelda adventure, you'll find that in Newtopia. Newtopia is straight up Legend of Zelda, buddy. I mean, it's that overworld, you slash your sword, you kill the monsters, you can go in caves, you can go down in dungeons. It's everything the Legend of Zelda is, and it does it very, very well. And if you loved Newtopia, you also have Newtopia 2, which is more of the same. I mean, like, more of the exactly the same, for the most part. Up first is Gakisha Boy, which is like Photograph Boy, and I love this game. I wish we'd see another game like it. Now, I'm playing the English patched version, but I didn't need to know Japanese to learn how to play this game. You play a photographer, and your job is to take pictures of random things you see around town. Now, at the beginning, the person might say, hey, I need a picture of this, so you gotta give them a picture of that. But along the way, if you take other weird pictures, you'll get more film that you can use to get more photos and more photography and more points and all that too. Simply in just playing the stage, you'll see all this weird stuff happening around you, and you have to focus on it. It's like, I know something's gonna happen, and as soon as it does, take that picture, because it might be some great score for you, or it might be, you know, what the person's looking for. There's a lot of crazy stuff happening all over the place, so it's okay if you mess up, because you can always go back through and try it again. This is Gakisha Boy. It might be called Photograph Boy, and it's absolutely awesome. Hey, what about the Batman game we never got? This Batman game plays more like a maze game, and there's a couple of games that look kind of like this for the TurboGrafx-16. You have to make your way through the level, avoid the bad guys, or you can use your little batarang, which will make them confused, which will knock them out, basically. You have to pick up all the items in each stage, and then by doing so, you move on to the next stage. It's one of those kind of games. The more you move on, the harder it gets. You know how that goes. There's even a very, very familiar song in this game that you hear the TurboGrafx-16 version of it. And you can't go wrong with Batman, really. And this is just a fun version of a Batman game, because usually the other Batman games are like dark and gritty, and this one's just fun. Well, here we have Dragon Egg, and Dragon Egg is a great cartoon action platformer. You start off with a little girl with your egg that you use as your weapon, and the more you get these items, the more the egg hatches and turns, the egg into a baby dragon, which you will also use as a weapon, and then eventually into a larger dragon and even a bigger dragon. And hopefully you have that bigger dragon when it comes to these boss battles, because you're going to need it. Dragon Egg's super awesome. You should check it out if you can. Did you know they made a Die Hard game that only came out in Japan? Well, that's no fair. And it plays pretty decently. I like the fact that it was a Die Hard game that came out in Japan and did not come out in the United States. However, it plays kind of like an Ikari Warriors, kind of, I guess. Has a top-down view, and you can go inside these bunkers and get, better guns and whatever. Yeah, very Ikari Warriors, very kind of commando, I guess. I mean, it plays like it looks. It does. I still have quite a ways before I make it to the tower, but you get the idea. Here's Don Dokodan. Don Dokodan, I suppose? It's another Bubble type game, but you play as these guys with these hammers, and the hammers are or what your weapon is. You smash the enemy, you pick them up, and then you toss them into the other enemies. And again, they turn into fruit, because that's what these Bubble type games do. Don't forget to eat your fruit, I guess. Another fun two-player game from Taito for the PC Engine. This game is your Alice in Wonderland. It's like Fushigi, something or other Alice. It's Alice in Wonderland. You play Alice in your Wonderland in a fun cartoon platformer. I like how your weapon is you yelling. Your weapon is you screaming. And the more you hold it down and let go, the louder your yell is, which I guess equates to stronger power. Of course it does. You'll see familiar type Alice in Wonderland characters as enemies. Believe it or not, it's a little bit harder of a platformer than some of the other games that look like this, but you'll get the hang of it really quickly. It's a fun one. It's a fun one. Okay, Fushigi no Yume no Alice is the name of this game. All right, here we go. Yeah, but again, Alice in Wonderland. Come on. Owl Blink, but it's like Blue Blink. Either way, I'm sure it's based on an anime series that we never got. But this game's actually kind of fun. You play as a lead character, and then you have two other characters kind of tailing behind you in this platformer. And it's another one of those, you move through the stage, you get your money. Even has a little map screen that you can choose where you want to go next. And then your characters even swap out sometimes, which is kind of cool. I remember picking this up on a whim, where it's just like, I don't know anything about this game, but I'll buy it because it's like $5, and I'm so glad I picked up this game. Now, Circus Lido is a interesting puzzle kind of game. It looks like it would be kind of a darker Bubble style, and it kind of is. You play this gecko, this chameleon, I guess, who eats these enemies with your tongue. You can also use your tongue to pull yourself up to these upper platforms. But once you eat the enemy, and you spit them out into a ball, but you want to spit the enemy out into these I don't know if they're like Audrey 2s or what they are, but that's what you do. And once you do that to all of the enemies, then the stage is clear. And then you move through the hole and you move on to the next level. Just another one of those weird kind of puzzle games. It's like, well, that's something I hadn't heard of, something worth talking about. Maybe you haven't heard of it. Just another one of those kind of weird puzzle games that we never got in the United States, so figured it was worth mentioning. Now, the TurboGrafx-16, well known for its shooters. Let's talk about some of them, including Toilet Kids. Yeah. I'm moving on to the next screen before anything happens, and Toilet Kids is one of those games you play because you just want to see what the enemies look like. You just want to see what you're up against. It has some crazy something that will make like the kids giggle when they see them. That's something that makes me giggle when I see them. So Toilet Kids is, I mean, at its core, it's a decent shooter. It plays a lot like Twinbee. But download, however, now download may be my favorite shooter for all of the PC Engine TurboGrafx-16. You start out choosing your weapons, and you fly around on this kind of Akira bike in the post-apocalyptic area here, at least in the first stage. Just love how it looks, love how it feels. I love how you can see the first boss in the background, and then, you know, at the end of the stage, it actually comes into the foreground. Defeat the boss, move on. There's download. Love this game. There is a download too for the PC Engine CD, and that will be another video for another time. Another great classic arcade game, P-47. I played a lot of P-47 in the arcade. I like this game a lot because you played as an actual airplane. So many shooters, especially for the TurboGrafx-16, you play as like, you know, a spaceship or something like that. But this was just a legit, you're an airplane. You're a P-47, you're a Thunderbolt. And that's what I loved about this game. So it's, to me, that was, you know, up the alley of why I really liked it. And like other shooters, you get your weapon upgrade. You can also not really drop bomb. Well, there's bomb type stuffs. But P-47 ranks very high on my list for great shooters for the TurboGrafx-16, or PC Engine, both of them. Another fun shooter to point out, Burning Angels on this one. I liked it because when you start out, you're not even moving. You're just like stationary fighting this giant boss, and then you go from there. But then once you go from there, that's when you find all your weapons and your upgrades and all that too, so... yeah, Burning Angels is pretty cool. I think it's Rabio Lepus Special. Sometimes this game's called Rabbit Punch. I see it referred to as Rabbit Punch sometimes, which is a game I played in the arcade in Seaside, Oregon, in like the late 80s, early 90s, and I loved this game. I just like the fact that you play as a bunny. I mean, to me, that was the seller. 2-player on this one if you wish. You can check this game out. It's fun. Pretty hard too. I didn't do very well in this playthrough. I think the game is pronounced Barunba, and it is another shooter. What makes this unique is it has that kind of Forgotten Worlds feel where one button is fire, but then the other button and the start button are to rotate your turrets, 360 degrees one way or the other way. So if the enemies are coming above you, you can shoot above you. If they're coming, if you're coming in at your 9 o'clock, you can flip your thing around, or whatever position you need to be shooting, you can rotate your gun turret in that direction. Which makes this game kind of fun, and it also makes it challenging because sometimes I'm hitting the wrong button and it's going clockwise instead of counterclockwise. But still, even if you don't mind, you can just flip it all around. It's all good. Another anime game, City Hunter on this one. The controls could have been tighter on this, but it's still worth checking out just because it's City Hunter, and I love the City Hunter, the anime. I saw the movie stars Jackie Chan. If you haven't seen that, that's worth checking out. You just move through the stage, you can go inside some of these doors and get what you need. Yeah, they made a City Hunter game for the PC Engine. I'm not surprised it didn't come out in America, but, you know, it's all good. And I'm always looking for new suggestions for PC Engine games, so let me know what are some other great games that you don't need to know Japanese to play, or if there's an English translation patch, I'd be down for that too. A lot more must-play games. Check out All Kinds for all kinds of systems. Consider being a Patreon. Consider subscribing. I'll see you so soon.